I think that the things that have brought us here today tell us a lot about the development of our continent of Africa. I'm beginning by saying that the place of the diaspora, the status of people in the diaspora, of the African diaspora, is intimately linked with what happens on the continent. And Africa strong and performing transforms your position and your status here in Europe. But an Africa which continues to live the narrative of poverty, hungry children, people going across the Sahara, going in rickety boats and dying in Lampedusa to get to Europe. That Africa is not a narrative that is going to help you over here. So I think between you and us, our main task is the transformation of the continent. And why do I say so? Just one simple example. The Chinese diaspora is supposed to be some 60 million people. And in the table of states, they constitute the 25th country in the world. They're saying that of the 52 billion foreign investment that went into China in the 80s and 90s that transformed China into what it is today, the manufacturing hub of the world, 50% of that, 26%, came from the Chinese overseas community. And that development of China that has taken place has changed the status and the position of Chinese all over the world. So I want you to take those statistics very seriously, because that is the transformative connection that we want to make with the African diaspora. How to implicate it in the development of the continent. Once we change the narrative about Africa, and we can only do it ourselves, we have to get away from the idea that there's some Father Christmas somewhere who's going to come and develop our continent for us. There is no such Father Christmas. There's just us who are going to be able to develop our continent. So once that mentality is our mentality, that we have to do it ourselves, then our relations with other people become that much more structured and punctilious, if you like. Our relations with France, our relations with Europe. Our relations with Europe is a natural one. You look at the geography of the world, Africa and Europe are natural partners. There's just this small strip of water, the Mediterranean, that separates the two of us. So when you look at that, and you look also at the history that has gone on between Africa and Europe, that is a natural relationship and a natural alliance, but a relationship that has to be different from the relationship that we've had up to now. Why do I say so? That relationship has enriched Europe, but has not enriched Africa. So we need to change that dynamic. And we can only do it by ourselves taking the correct measures for our future. So that's where my focus is. And that's why I'm very excited about the possibility of having this encounter, that we can all begin to speak the same language, the language of cooperation, the language of collaboration, but to a different end. It cannot be right that the continent that has allegedly the wealthiest resources of all the continents of the world is also the home of the poorest people on the globe. That disconnect is not a good disconnect, and we need to work to change that disconnect. So when we're then talking about the need for self-reliance, it is because particularly important is to recognize that we have the resources. We have the youngest population in the world. 25% of our population is under the age of, 19? It's a huge amount of resource, of potential strength. And once we do the educating, we find the means to do the educating of this population and giving it skills, then we are putting Africa on a path of very, very strong economic growth. We can replicate what has been done in Asia, if, like them, we maintain the discipline and the correct analysis of what we need to do to move our continent forward. But really, if they've been able in Asia in a generation to transform the lives of hundreds of millions of Chinese, hundreds of millions of Indians, why can we not replicate that same phenomenon on our continent? We can do it. And I have no doubt that those of you here can make a big input into that transformation that we're all looking for. And when we're saying this, and it's very important that we recognize that we're not saying we're turning our back on the world. No, we can't do that. We live on the same planet. We need the association and the partnership with countries like France, with the technologies that they have developed here, their savoir-faire in many, many areas. All those things are matters that we can profitably associate and benefit from. But all of it, always, from an understanding that it is for us to define the relationship that we want with the rest of the world. We shouldn't be caught up in a language or a narrative that says that we are appendages to other people's thinking, other people's policies, other people's volonté. That will not help us. So, Mr. President, we're saying the time has come for us to take our destiny in our own hands. It's now 6 decades since the independence movement swept Africa. And those who led it, did so on the understanding that independence would bring not just freedom as sovereign states, but would also provide us the base for the social and economic transformation of our countries. That still hasn't happened. But the pointers are all very, very positive towards the future. And there are several countries on the continent. I would get into a lot of trouble if I started identifying them here, as I should mention, and I won't mention anyone. But there are several on the continent that visibly you can see are on the right way forward for what we need to do. But in concluding, there's just one thing that I want to say to my brothers and my sisters of the African diaspora in this room. And that is something that perhaps when I hear the way in which there's a lot of concern about the status in France and barriers in France. But there's one thing that all of you should remember, and I hope that you will associate this with me. The destiny of all black people in the world, wherever they are, is bound up with Africa. Let me repeat that. The destiny of all black people in the world is bound up with Africa. And a performing Africa elevates the status of all black people around the world. And non-performing Africa continues the situation where black people around the world are looked at. So thank you for this opportunity to come and speak to you. Whatever support France or the European Union can give us, it will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. We'll continue to make policy for ourselves, in our country, in our region, in our continent, on the basis of whatever support the Western world or France or the European Union can give us. It will not work. It has not worked, and it will not work. Our responsibility is to charter a path which is about how we can develop our nations ourselves. It is not right for a country like Ghana, 60 years after independence, to still have its health and education budgets being financed on the basis of the generosity and charity of European taxpayers. By now, we should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves.
We should be able to finance our basic needs ourselves.
And if we are going to look at the next 60 years as a period of transition, a period whereby we can stand on our own feet, our perspective has not to be what the French taxpayer decides to do with whatever surpluses that they have in France. They're welcome. They're
appreciated. Whatever interventions that the French taxpayer through their governments make to us are appreciated. We're not going to lick a gift horse in the mouth. But this continent, with all that has happened, is still today the repository of at least 30% of the most important minerals of the world. It's a continent of vast, arable and fertile lands. It has the youngest population of any of the continents in the world. So it has the energy and the dynamism. We have seen it. These young men who are showing so much resilience and ingenuity in crossing the Sahara, finding ways to go across with rickety boats across the Mediterranean to really, those energies, we want to have those energies working inside our countries. And we're going to have those energies working in our countries if we begin to build systems that tell the young people of our country that their hopes, their opportunity are right here with us. Migration and the movement of people is being presented in a manner which suggests that somehow it's a new phenomenon. There's nothing new about it. It's as old as man, the movement of people. And it has always been linked to the same thing. The failure of where you are to provide you with an opportunity, so you move somewhere else. Those of you who are familiar with 19th century European history would know that the biggest wave of immigration in 19th century Europe, the latter part of it, came from Ireland and from Italy. Waves upon waves, generations of Italians and Irish people left their countries to seek the American paradise, largely because Ireland was not working, Italy was not working. Today, you don't hear it. Italian young people are in Italy. Irish young people are in Ireland. We want young Africans to stay in Africa.
If you believe, shout! Listen!
And how are they? And it means that we have to get away from this mindset of dependence. This mindset about what can France do for us. France will do whatever it needs to do for its own sake. And when those coincide with ours, tant mieux, as the French people say. But our main responsibility as leaders, as citizens, is what we need to do to grow our own countries. What are the institutions that work, that will allow us to have good governance, to have accountable governance, to make sure that the monies that are placed at the disposal of leaders are used for the interests of the state and not for those of the leaders, to have systems that allow for accountability, that allow for diversity, that allow for people to be able to express themselves and contribute to fashioning the public will and the public interest. Our concern should be with what do we need to do in this 21st century to move Africa away from being cap in hand and begging for aid, for charity, for handouts. The African continent, when you look at its resources, should be giving monies to other places. We have huge wealth on this continent, in our own country of Ghana. And we need to have a mindset that says, we can do it. Others have done it. We can also do it. And once we have that mindset, we will see it as a liberating factor for ourselves. We keep talking about how it was that Koreans, Malaysians, Singaporeans, who got their independence at the same time as us. We're told of that at the time of Ghanaian independence, per capita Ghanaian income was higher than that of Korea. Today, Korea is part of the first world. So is Malaysia. So is Singapore. What happened? Why did they make that transition? And 60 years after independence, we are where we are. Those are the matters that should concern all of us as Africans, as Ghanaians. And not, when I say so, with the greatest of respect to the French president. I think that the cooperation of France is something that I am, as you know, a strong friend of France. I am Francophile. So I don't have any difficulty with that. But I'm talking about our own propulsion, what we need to do to get our countries to work so that we can create the conditions that would allow our young people to forego this hazardous effort to get to Europe. They're not going there because they want to. They're going there because they don't believe they have any opportunities in our countries. So that should be our focus. And I believe that with that if we change that mindset of dependence, that mindset which is contingent on aid and charity, we would see that in the decades ahead of us, the full flowering of the African peoples will take place. And that new African personality that was talked about at the time of our independence will become real and imminent in our times. That's what I'm saying. I hope that I'm not upsetting the questioner or even some of my friends who are here. But these are my strongly held beliefs. And that is the reason why I've adopted as the slogan of my presidency, of my period in the Supreme Office of Ghana, that we want to build a Ghana beyond aid, a Ghana which is independent, which is self-sufficient, that is capable of standing on its own feet and building its own life. We can do it if we have the correct mindset to do so. Mr. President, those are my contributions. But I'd like to add some additional comments to what the French president has said. Libya is today the source of all the destabilization that is taking place in the Sahelian region. The arms that are circulating in the Sahelian region are all coming from the armory that Colonel Gaddafi established in Libya before his downfall. So resolving the crisis in Libya is not just resolving it internally for the Libyan people. Not only does it therefore provide an opportunity to bring to an end these barbaric acts, these acts of savagery that are taking place against Africans on Libyan soil, but it also provides an opportunity finally to come to grips with the crisis in the Sahelian region. And therefore, the coordination that the African countries are now wanting to undertake, better to organize their response, both to the issues in the Sahel and to Libya, are extremely important for the stability of our region. Whether it is Boko Haram, the jihadists in Mali, those who are menacing the stability of Niger, of Chad, of Burkina Faso, there is a common link, which is the terrorist emanations from Libya. So it's extremely important that all of us, as effectively as possible, of course, if we have partners such as France, who have indicated their preparedness to be involved in that coordination, the better it is for us. But it is a matter of primordial concern for us in this region. If we don't come to grips with the situation in Libya, it's going to become difficult to come to grips with these, what I consider to me, ancillary, subsidiary matters that are taking place in the Sahelian region. That is how important the resolution of the crisis in Libya is. So the decisions that now have to be made at the continental level by the AU, whether it is in a position to mount the direct military intervention, how it sees the issues of security and stability in Libya, are some of the most important decisions the African Union is going to be taking in the, and as you can see, I have my own things contribute as well. So let's bring it to an end.
This visit is historic because it is only the third ever from a country south of the Sahara, and the first since Ghana obtained its independence in 1957. At the same time, today is the logical consequence of a lengthy development because relations between Switzerland and Ghana have for decades been characterized by mutual respect. Not every connection between our two countries can be deduced at first glance. Take the gold freneli, or I can translate the traditional gold coin and the chocolate coins, both products that every child here grows up with and which are considered typically Swiss. But neither would exist without gold and cocoa, which we import on a large scale from Ghana. It is quite simple. We need the raw materials, and you have the raw materials. The resulting trade and business should benefit both countries. This principle is part of mutual respect. Gold and cocoa can create work and wealth in both countries.
Excellency the President and members of the Federal Council, I've had the privilege of visiting Switzerland several times since becoming President of the Republic of Ghana. My last visit was to Davos nearly a month ago, where I participated in the 50th anniversary meeting of the World Economic Forum. At the invitation of its founder and executive chairman, the world-renowned Professor Klaus Schwab. Happily, it is much warmer here in Bern. I thank President Simonetta Sommaruga, head of the 7-member Federal Council, for the honor of this state visit and for the opportunity to make this brief statement in the Federal Assembly, Switzerland's 2-century-old House of Parliament. Excellencies of the Federal Council, relations between our two countries date back to the 19th century, when the Basel missionaries arrived in the then Gold Coast, now Ghana, to undertake evangelical work. The missionaries pioneered the establishment of educational institutions across the country, including our first agricultural school at Akufo, my paternal hometown, in the eastern region of the country. Indeed, my own late father, President of Ghana's Second Republic, who was deeply imbued with the Presbyterian attributes of discipline, industry, integrity, and thrift, was a famous product of Akropon's celebrated Salem School. They are also credited with the establishment of health facilities, including a missionary hospital at Agogo in the Ashanti region, and were instrumental in the spread of the cultivation of cocoa, a commodity which has been for the last century the mainstay of the Ghanaian economy. The Christian community in Ghana is greatly indebted to the Basel missionaries, who are also responsible for the translation of the Bible from English into 2 of the main Ghanaian languages, and who have been accorded due honor by us. The names of Inter Elios, Andreas Ries, Johannes Gottlieb Christener, and Fritz Ramsayer continue to reverberate in our history and collective memory. I've also personally benefited from these very good relations, because the first European head of state to visit Ghana when I assumed office as the 5th president of Ghana's 4th Republic on 7 January 2017 was your 91st president, Her Excellency Mrs. Doris Leuthard. Excellencies, in recent times, the ties of friendship and cooperation between our two countries have grown even stronger. Technical and financial assistance from the Swiss government, which has provided to the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping Training Center, have helped it carry out its activities and achieve its vision of becoming the preferred center on the continent for training, education, and research in matters of African peace and security. Again, in September 2014, the Swiss government provided assistance to Ghana, which helped ensure that the country did not record a single case of Ebola, the virus which unfortunately ravaged some neighboring countries in West Africa. In May 2017, our two countries signed a $2.6 million United States remittance grant facility to help lower the cost of remitting money to Ghana. Ghana is currently Switzerland's largest trading partner in sub-Saharan Africa, largely from the export of gold and cocoa to Switzerland and the import of chemical and pharmaceutical products, as well as light machinery and military equipment from Switzerland. However, as I have stated on occasion, Ghana no longer wants to be dependent on the production and export of raw materials, including cocoa beans. We intend to process more and more of our cocoa in our country with the aim of producing more chocolate ourselves, because we believe that there can be no future prosperity for the Ghanaian people in the short, medium, or long term if we continue to maintain economic structures that are dependent on the production and export of raw materials. We intend to add value to our raw materials, industrialize and enhance agricultural productivity. This is the best way we can put Ghana at the high end of the value chain in the global marketplace and create jobs for the teeming masses of Ghanaians. It is for this reason that my government continues to put in place a number of measures aimed at attracting investment into Ghana, as well as stimulating growth of the private sector. We have succeeded over the last 3 years in ensuring that all our macroeconomic indices are pointing in the right direction. Cut our fiscal deficit, introduce a monetary policy that is stabilizing the currency and reducing significantly the cost of borrowing, and have introduced a raft of tax cuts which are bringing relief to and encouraging businesses. These interventions have led to Ghana recording an annual GDP average growth rate of 7% since 2017, making us consistently one of the world's fastest growing economies during the period. We are one of the most business-friendly economies in Africa, evidenced in our status as the largest recipient of foreign direct investment in West Africa. Ghana has also been selected to host the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area, a market of some 1.2 billion people with a combined GDP of US 3 trillion American dollars. It is the world's largest free trade area since the formation of the World Trade Organization. Our goal is to make Ghana the hub of trade in Africa, and thus serving notice on Swiss investors to take advantage of the growing business-friendly climate in Ghana and of our unique position as host of the AFCFTA Secretariat to set up joint venture enterprises in our country and thereby access this huge market that the free trade area presents. Excellencies, Madam President, I'm pleased to inform you that our country is fully committed to a democratic present and future where respect for individual liberties and human rights, the rule of law, and the principles of democratic accountability are at the core of our body politic. Ghana stands shoulder to shoulder with Switzerland in our joint determination to promote and protect human rights across the globe. I'm hopeful that as we shape the future of Ghana and position Ghanaian enterprises to compete effectively on the world stage, we have friends such as the Swiss Confederation to support us in this objective. We are determined in Ghana to ensure that succeeding generations of Ghanaians do not become victims or pawns of the international economic order, but her beneficiaries. Indeed, the project is a Ghana beyond aid, a Ghana which has discarded a mindset of dependency, aid, charity, and handouts, and is charting a path of self-reliance in her progress, fashioned out of the intelligent and disciplined use of her considerable human and material resources.